Hi guys, it's Tuesdays and welcome to Tuesday with Tiff. And today we are going to talk about sensory overload and what that is and what that looks like and how it can contribute to a sensory meltdown. So we all know that in the world we live in today, it's louder, it's more hectic, it's faster paced, lights are brighter, noises are louder. You go into the bathroom and it's like a overwhelming just barrage of sensory input between the automatic hand dryers, the automatic toilet flushing, all that loud noise, and just everything being in one small space can be very overwhelming. Our stores have brighter lights, we have phones going off, we have just more just sensory going on, and just our lives are overscheduled and busier. So overall, we all can sometimes what I always say that we all experience sensory overload when you get home and there's 1,000 demands and people coming up to you and it's just super crazy. That's when you're less likely to tolerate like a noise, or if you hear something and it may put you into an overload. So sensory overload is normal. Like, we all experience that. It's what happens whenever too much information is coming in from too many sources and too many sensory channels, and just it's kind of like a traffic jam. It gets clogged up and your body just starts to tell you, hey, I'm in overload. So kids with sensory processing issues are more likely to experience sensory meltdowns, or sensory overload. And a sensory overload that's not properly handled can get to the point where it becomes a sensory meltdown. So what we try to do is to be able to keep the kids be able to recognize symptoms of a sensory overload and be able to treat those or do something about that to try to keep it from getting to that point. So some symptoms of a sensory overload are irritability, just kind of a change in mood. Some kids will do things. I have had several questions lately about people covering their ears, kids covering their ears for different reasons. We have kids that may actually have problems like tolerating different noises, and they may do that more often. But I have complaints of people that I know in my kids' elementary school, that with them complaining about different noises and being bothered. So it's very normal for all of us, and it's just a really easy thing to do when you're in any kind of sensory overload, to cover your ears. That doesn't mean that you're an auditory sensitive person, but that's just the easiest thing to do to block out one channel. So a lot of things you can't control around you. You can't control the hair dryer or the hand dryers, the toilets flushing, the loud noises, the phones beeping, but you can control like if you can hear it. So you can cover your ears. So a lot of times people are like, oh, my child's auditory sensitive because he covers his ears. And I'm like, well, let's look at the whole body. It's all related. It's all contributes to one thing. And that might just be a symptom of a bigger problem. And just because someone does that, it doesn't mean that they have a sensory processing dysfunction. It's more like, does that keep you from doing different things? My child's afraid of this environment and it has to do with the noise or the lights. So some things you can do is providing some structure. And just some practical things is by giving them some sensory input through another channel. So if you know the noise is an issue for a kiddo, maybe making sure they have like a bag of stuff like squishies and different fidget toys they can play with, making sure they're carrying something heavy, or giving them some proprioceptive input before you go into a busy environment. Another idea, I'm just going to kind of shoot these off, is being able to talk to your kiddo and saying we're staying this long, and showing them a timer or a clock and keeping it more structured, and show them like, we're going here, we're doing this. And by telling your kiddo that you can have a break. If it gets too busy at this place, we're going to go here. You need to, just tell me and we'll leave. A lot of times kids just don't understand how long they're going to be somewhere. And so just knowing that they can take a break and have that outlet if they need to. So just looking at your kiddo through that different lens, and basically looking for those signs of sensory overload. Another sign of sensory overload, we said cover the ears, also like climbing under a table. Running away can be a big one. It's kind of like that fight or flight, like I got to get out of here. So a lot of kids will just run, they'll hide under a table, or if your child is just very clingy in certain environments, maybe looking at that environment and seeing what about that you think can be a contributing factor, and just even journaling some of those things and keeping track, like, oh, every time we go into target in this section that seems to be a trigger, and keeping track of some of those things so you can problem solve and figure out like what might be contributing to that sensory overload. So I just tell people in general, if it's a problem, maybe trying to simplify things and actually just keeping things more simple and less busy. Sometimes really, do you have to do this? Do you have to go 5 places? Let's go 1 place and then Amazon Prime the rest or whatever. So that's just kind of a few helpful solutions. If you need more practical solutions, it's hard to say without actually knowing a particular kiddo, but generally just increasing the structure. Proprioception is always the go-to to be able to calm, and it's more calming, and it's also just more organizing input. So if you can combine some of that into different situations, a lot of times just gum can help, and looking at different strategies to be able to help your kiddo. And like I said, basically we're just trying to turn a sensory overload situation into turning on a full-on meltdown. And so if you have any questions, we'd love to answer those. And next week we will be talking about another topic. And 1 week, I believe next week we're going to try to talk about sleep, how sensory processing is related to sleep, and how some practical tips to be able to improve your child's sleep routine. So thank you for listening, and let us know if you have any other questions or would like to hear about another topic. Thank you.